Welcome to the Brain Factor Podcast with Joy and Laura, powered by Meridian Healthcare, approaching wellness with heart, one life at a time, one community at a time. This is a science-based conversation about real life. Our goal? To leave you with a few nuggets of wisdom, smile on your face, and maybe even a laugh or two. So let's jump in.
Hi, and welcome to the Brain Factor. I'm Laura, and this is Joy, as always, joining me today. And Joy, we have a very special episode today that
We do. I'm so excited.
I am too. I have been wanting to bring these folks on for a while now, and so thank you for going down this road with me. But I wanted to introduce our viewers and listeners to my friend Nikki and her husband Harry. And they are joining us here to talk. This is the new year, right? It's the beginning of a new year.
Yeah.
We are entering 2025. We've made no secret of the fact that we are anti New Year's resolutions.
No resolutions.
We are very pro New Leaf, right? And self-discovery and all of that. And Nikki and Harry are in long-term recovery. Nikki's a peer support specialist. They do ministry together and very active in the recovery space. And so I thought that would be very fitting to talk about. And I know personally for me, becoming friends with Nikki, it's one thing when we meet people and we know them, but our friendship has taught me a lot about like our own implicit biases that we carry around, and a lot of it's very stigma breaking to see them together and the work that they do. So anyway, I don't want to talk anymore. I want to before we hear from them. So welcome, Bice. Thank you so much for being here. Can you start off by just giving us a couple of headlines, just sort of introduce yourselves, your story, and then we'll dive in a little bit more.
Well, thanks for having us. It's an honor and a pleasure to be invited to something like this. You know, Nikki and I are too big on doing things like this, but you know, as we've turned this new leaf, this new thing, so we're accepting all these new avenues, especially when it advocates an opportunity that would benefit somebody else that may be where we used to be and are looking for that encouragement to do better. You know,
Yeah.
I was in active addiction for 20 years of my life. I started at a very young age, just, you know, a bunch of different bad decisions, grew up in that unhealthy marital environment with my parents and different things like that. But I've been in active recovery now for 10 years. And, you know, I'm just blessed and full of joy and excitement for every day is a new day and another chance at life, you know. That goes with that thing that everybody says in recovery, just one day at a time. And it is really true. Sometimes it's one moment at a time.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that day is too much. Maybe we just need to get through this situation, this moment at this time in life. So, but it's a wonderful and glorious adventure. I have a wonderful partner here, a teammate in recovery, something that I just never envisioned me actually having a wife to partner and do life in, a real helpmate, as the Bible would say.
Awesome.
Um, and as you were saying, with New Year, it just reminds me of the things in recovery. I also have 10 years in recovery, and the New Year reminds me of what recovery really means. It's about transformation, and it's about new beginnings. It's about new starts, and it's about taking hold of something that it doesn't matter what yesterday had. It's about beginning from this point forward and moving on and building on that. And I just love recovery because, it doesn't my past doesn't define me anymore. It's about what I have made the decision that my life is going to be from this point forward. You know, once I was defined by my mistakes, and as long as I was a victim and I held on to those, I was shackled by that. And that victimization, it just kept me bound by that identity of that, just kept me bound by the mistakes, the guilt, the shame, um, the poor self-esteem. I was just trapped in that cycle, which led me down so many dark paths. And, I just it was almost a form of self-punishment that I trapped myself into, but recovery was the key to freedom that allowed me to be able to just open that door and to be able to go into that space that God always had for me to be in. And, the hope of recovery is something that I always try to give my peers and tell them that it doesn't matter where you've been. That is not your final destination. That is not where you have to stay. And, being a certified recovery peer specialist, that is the thing that is the most powerful.
Tell our folks what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a certified recovery peer specialist is, for me, in a nutshell, it's like saying to someone, because, I get the gift of saying that I have this lived experience. And, the beautiful thing about it is the thing that used to define me and disqualify me for everything
Is the
had
very thing.
become
Yeah.
the thing
That's
that has
qualifications.
set me above.
Yeah.
And now I am so qualified to go back into the places that someone else can't go.
Yeah.
Because, degrees only gets you so far, because now I can go into prisons, I can go into jails, and I can speak to a place that those people know. I know where you've been because I was there too.
Right.
And
And that's a state certification too,
it's
though, right?
it
You still have to go through a whole process. Some of our viewers and listeners may not know that. Like we work in that space, so these are like normal words for us, but you have to go through a whole process to be. And there's not to go too much down a rabbit hole, but there's issues with background checks for higher specialists because some of the things that travel right with addiction, right, might be like you were saying. I loved how you put that, the very things that disqualified you from other things in the past, right?
yeah.
Well, I think that's so I'm sorry.
No,
I
go
think
ahead.
it's so important that just if you take nothing else away from today's episode, you've already hit on something that applies to all of us, which is our past doesn't define our future. And the things that we did, what Laura was just saying, the things that disqualified you now qualified you. And we can all embrace that no matter what our state is or what's going on in our life. We've all done things in our past that we're proud of or not proud of.
Right. And that whole
And it
idea
just, it
you
doesn't
can
mean any,
Yeah.
your journey is
not question that I wanted us to talk about today, because we've talked, you and I talked previously, and we were even talking before the cameras were rolling about, and you being a peer specialist and the ministry you guys are involved in, and how you're helping others and giving back, right? But in the beginning of recovery is a lot about getting yourself straight, right? And a lot about that personal journey. At what point did that change? Like, when did you shift that outward to other folks? What did that part of your path and your journey look like?
It was 2019, wasn't it?
Yeah. So for me, that journey began. So we were both sentenced to the Phoenix House. So when I was in treatment, I'll never ever forget, I was in caseload and I had a wonderful counselor. And well, at the time, I didn't think she was wonderful. Man, I despised her.
She's challenging you.
She challenged me. She pushed me. She called me out on all my behaviors, and I did not like her very much. Matter of fact, I detested her. Um, but she but she told us in caseload one day, she said, "Look to your left and look to your right." She said, "Only one person in five is going to overcome their substance misuse sitting in this room."
Wow.
And matter of fact, there's probably going to be only 1 out of 5 that will not only overcome your addiction, but when you look around this room, there's probably some of you that will not survive.
Yeah.
And since graduating the program, there's probably been about 75 people that has overdosed and died from the Phoenix House that we know of.
It gets real. It gets real so fast when you realize those statistics are actually not just trying to get in your head and make you think shit like, oh, I want to be the one. But, so that lie was told to me as well. I was told 70% success rate in jail, and then got to on the ride, even just on the ride in the van to the Phoenix House, it's a 30%. And then one day my counselor shared the same thing. She said the success rate's only like 3%. So, you get, get to get on your road and stay on it if you really want to do this. So I think it was maybe a little bit of a scare tactic, but did it keep 75 of our peers from dying? No, it didn't. So that's just how brutal addiction really is. I don't want to backtrack too much, but so she went through the whole process of the background and thing like that. So she's actually helping me do mine, and she just thought hers was hard, right? Mine is a little more.
He's multi-states.
I have multiple states. I've been living on the criminal side of addiction a lot longer than she did. So
Statistically, that is true for men, though, and that is true for men, which is why there's such a lack. One of the reasons why there's such a lack of men in that peer space.
Absolutely.
So good for you for chipping away at it and trying. Yeah.
Yeah, and that issue has been pressed on me ever since I started volunteer for the same organization that she works for. I'm not state certified, but the title still remains. I'm a recovery specialist, so
Right.
I'm able to support in any way through voluntary ways. But becoming state certified would ultimately be the goal, because there's so many women helping men, and they're not able to get that connection as a man would be able to. So just for instance, when I go into the jails in the ministry that we're in, those guys, they light up the room lights up, and they're just like, not to discredit anyone that's in the field or in ministry or a pastor or what per se, but are people like us. We don't listen until we've heard someone that has been where they've been, because that's ultimately what helped my wife and I. Is all of our counselors that was helping us through this process in rehab, they had all those lived experiences.
Yeah.
So then we realized, and the question was asked, when did it become, when did you know that it was time? Well, I learned that you can't keep it unless you give it away, and I'm a little greedy. I have to admit,
You want to keep it.
I want to keep it,
All of it.
and so I want to give it all away.
Yeah.
I want to tell everybody my story. It doesn't matter. I had just met a person last night, known him for 5 minutes. I want to tell my story. So, it's because by being transparent and reproducing that story, and you're able to keep it, you're able to grow from it, and it stays vital. It stays right there at the forefront of your mind. I don't ever want to forget where I come from, because it's allowed me to develop and grow into the person I am today.
Yeah. So being the recovery specialist or the certified peer, that keeps you focused on your own recovery every day. So it helps you as much as it helps.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful.
And we tell all of our peers, like, this isn't us just helping you, like, you're helping us.
Yeah.
And not only is that, but this is a training grounds, it's almost like, it's like discipleship, really. It's that same image. Like, we're telling y'all and giving y'all encouragement and hope. It's coming and feeding back to us, but then y'all know people that will never get a chance to meet. So if y'all jump on this same road, then y'all can carry the message, and it can spread, and we can all be in this together. You know what I mean? Because it's a war zone out there, and we need more soldiers. We need more people on board with us. So I'm always telling our people, like, hey, like, we need you on our team. You know what I mean? We don't want to forever help you. We want to help each other.
Empower you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And when we got started, the key factor, the determining factor, I would say, is because when we were still living in Marion County, and we were attending church over at my dad's church and traveling back and forth on the weekends to see family in Dixie County. Um, but there was we're involved heavily in organizations in Marion County over there, through different nonprofits, through ministries with organizations like Feeding the Homeless, organizations that would provide stable housing. I was volunteering with like the heroin task force and stuff like that, and Christian 12 step, other organizations and all. So, I had began to understand the concept of service, and we were also really involved with different types of the recovery meetings and stuff in Marion County. But everything that we were involved in, we just kept thinking, man, they really need this in Dixie County because of, the limited resources that we knew that was in Dixie County. So in my mind, everything that we were involved in, I kept thinking back home. When I first
Was said, I'll never go back to
yeah, because that's what I kept telling him, because every
places and things. We can't go back.
right, every time he would mention when we'd go to visit, "Oh, well, this is so lovely here." Because he was from a big city, I'm from a small town. He loved it because it was, small town. He loved it, and I was like, "I'll never ever, never, never move back there. That's people places. How long have you been back?" So we moved back there in 2020. Yeah. Yeah, 2020 is when we moved back there.
Yeah.
So, but I kept telling them, "No, I'll never ever move back there." But so in 2019, early 2019, um, I had a cousin who he overdosed, and my heart was shattered. He had had mental health issues. He had been in and out of the state hospital. He had been in and out of trying to get mental health services. Um, just really struggled with trying to get the right help, the right diagnoses, and it broke my heart.
Mhm.
We were at church when we got the call. I went out, and when I saw him laying on the ground there with his lifeless body, like something in me broke, and like I heard an audible voice that said, "You have to do something." And I was reminded of a story about there's a story in the Bible that talks about Jesus healing the 10 lepers, and only one came back to praise God and to serve. The other 9 went on and lived their life. And I was reminded that because I was living my life was good for me in Marion County.
It was safe.
It was safe. It was
Had
great.
all these resources and all these people. We had developed a network. It was, really comfortable. It was really comfortable.
Very comfortable. And so I felt like that I was one of those 9 that was just living that great life. And I had forgot where I came from
Yeah.
and what I had done.
Defining moment. What an absolute defining moment. I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry that you went through it, but what an amazing act of service that led to.
Yeah.
And you're working now for the Dixie County Anti-Drug Coalition, and specifically in the recovery community organization that's part of, and what's the name of that again? Is it Rise Up for Recovery? Yeah. So, and that's very active in their community. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Nor the hat.
Almost
But my wife was like, I told my wife I'm not fixing my hair. I'm a hat wearer. Just because I tell her I don't wear.
For our listeners, his hair looks fine. I assure you.
It's really thin, and I'm starting to have a complex. Right?
Just don't turn to the camera won't see us.
So, but she's like, no, you're not wearing a hat tomorrow. You're gonna fix your hair. And I said, no, I'm wearing a hat. And we went to sleep with that story. And I woke up this morning fixing my hair.
I love it. Obedient. Well, you know what? That's a great segue into something else I wanted to talk about. And we talked before the cameras were rolling about, because I find, honestly, your relationship very inspiring, right? And I think the added layer of being in active recovery together, that's an added layer. But even without that, it's a mutually respectful relationship. There's mutual admiration. It's very obvious. They work well together. They communicate well together, right? So it's like I admire that about you guys, and I think the added layer of being in recovery together is really interesting. And I see where, I've been thinking, even just since we were talking before the cameras were rolling, what we were talking about was this idea of avoiding codependency, which was a theme for your time in addiction for both of you. And so specifically for you, Nick. Yeah. So that's something that's important. But yet, like, what does that look like? Depending and relying and having this closeness, and that line between that and codependency, and not needing each other but still having that wanting to be together. Right. But you still rely on my husband. He relies on me, right? So like, what is that? Talk to us about that.
That was huge, for me, because I had to really, prior to meeting him, when I was at the Phoenix house, prior to that, I was very, very codependent. I didn't know that I was codependent. Matter of fact, when I got to the Phoenix house, for the first 4 months I was there, I got an unhealthy relationship packet for 4 months every week. I was so mad at my counselor because people were getting brand new stuff every week.
On this, they were like, "We're still working on this." I'm not yours. The meal pot.
Trust the process.
And I'm like, really? Another unhealthy relationship packet? And it went from unhealthy relationship to codependency to unhealthy relationships. And I'm like, enough.
How many different things do they have in this subject?
Eventually, you want to study.
She went from packets to giving me books, I mean, she was determined that I was going to get this.
Yeah.
And so finally she gave me a book called Codependent No More. And I was reading it and I was like, I am not codependent. And then after reading like the first chapter, I'm like, oh my God, I am codependent. What in the world? And so after reading that book, she was in the middle of a one-on-one with another person, but I could not deny it no more. And I busted in the middle of a meeting with her, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, I'm codependent, I'm unhealthy relationships, and what do I do about it? So I made a vow to not be in any kind of relationship. I was in an abusive relationship with a guy that had been beating me, and I had, prior to going to the program, I was pregnant, and in my 4th month of gestation, he had beat me until I lost the baby I was carrying. So, but still, because I was so mentally unhealthy, I continued to be in that relationship, and because of codependency.
Yeah.
I justified being with him because I loved him. And so I made a vow to myself and to God that I would spend the next year just to find my identity and who I was, to discover that, because I had no idea. I was so lost. I was a chameleon. I had when I was with my ex-husband, I he liked rap music, so I decided I liked
Right.
and I didn't, and or whatever. But so I've started discovering who I was and getting to know who I was and what God said that I was. And I found that I could love myself again. And so my love for God and my love for myself became so strong and concrete. I didn't crave that love from my husband, from my father, my parents, my children, even in the same way that I used to, because I used to be such
Everything.
a people pleaser that if they didn't show me that, um, I was a people pleaser. So if they didn't give me that, um, I guess what do you call it? The affirmation. Yes. Then it crushed me, So, but I didn't need that anymore, you know?
She still likes words of affirmation, just letting you know.
I do. I do. Eating much needed. Yeah. Yeah.
Those, yes, that's awesome.
So, anyways, by the time he and I met, and he was still going when we met, he didn't know what he wanted. But I
Same
absolutely,
identity crisis,
yeah, he was still stuck in it. But I knew exactly what I wanted in life. And, when we first got together, he's like, listen, I don't know if I'm going to stay here or go back home to where I went. And I don't know what I want. I'm sorry. And, normally I would have been like, hey, I'm a great woman. I have all this. I'd have looked at it. So there's will be.
She wasn't like that at all. She just was there to support me
I said, look,
and help me develop that and find my identity. Not that she was directing it towards like finding my identity in her. It was just like, look, I want to be here for you to help you. And if you find your identity in it, you discover that you need to go back home basically to be around your brother and sister, then I support you in that. Yeah, she wasn't no longer dependent on
yeah.
you. Well,
And I was like, I get that, because I had to do that myself.
Yeah.
I understand that. And I want you to go and find what you need. And you need to figure out what it is that you want. But I know exactly what I want.
Mhm.
And you go to find what you want.
Right.
But I'm not going to sit here and wait on you to do it.
Which is a huge departure from where you
Which was huge. And I was so empowered to do that because I had never done that ever. And I was like, so I'm going to go now. And he was like, whoa, 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 wait. Where you going? What-
I was still a little codependent. I need your help, right?
Well, I know that we are running out of time, but there are two more things I really hope we can squeeze in and cover. But the first is that I heard you speak recently, and I think there was something really powerful that you had gone back to the Phoenix House and you had done. You had spoken to the folks who were getting ready to complete in this cycle, and when you spoke about your own recovery, you talked about getting to the place where you got to be the mother that you knew you could be and always wanted to be, and the daughter that you knew you could always be and want to be, and that those key people in your life got to see that, and can you just briefly speak to that?
Yeah. So,
Briefly.
Because I thought that was beautiful.
That's really the part for it.
yeah. Yeah. So that was the beauty of like the gift that recovery gave me is being able to be called on and hearing, there's a birthday party. We're going to invite Aunt Nikki because Aunt Nikki, she can be counted on to show up. Or my mom, the last 2 years of her life, she had lots of health issues. And so every doctor's appointment, I took her back and forth to doctor's appointments. And she, would have to have trips to the grocery store. And, I was there holding her hand when she took her last breath. And all of those things were key. My daughters, my oldest daughter especially, I missed her entire senior year. She pretty much put herself through high school. She raised herself that year. I mean, she was living by herself. She was 18. I had abandoned her. I was living homeless. Um, so I missed my first grandchild, my second grandchild, her senior prom, her graduation, everything. But now I'm there for everything for them.
She's there for the third grandchild.
What
But
was-
she was.
Yeah. Yeah. She wasn't expected to get
We were
pregnant.
blessed. You had a third chance.
I did. God give me a third chance, and I was there for the gender reveal, appointment, everything. So, but that means everything now is to be present in every moment and to be accounted for. But that knowing that that's where I was always supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's not even so much so as like this is it, but it's like knowing that that is the place that I was always supposed to be. It's it's just finding my way back to that place.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, you hear people say that like it's 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 almost that journey home, and I feel like that is part of what recovery is. It's not finding my way back, but it's like almost finding my way back to a better place than I ever have been.
Absolutely.
Finding absolutely the same place, a new place.
For sure.
When you look at it different.
Yeah.
So let's end by doing what you guys do best. And if you want to deliver this right into the camera, if there's somebody out there listening or watching who is looking for, could this be me? And what's that first step?
Yeah.
Offer some words.
Well, I just want to tell everybody recovery is absolutely possible, and that doesn't matter how many times you fall, you got to get back up. You know what I mean? And it's a journey. It's a life. This is a new lifestyle. Recovery is an ongoing process. It's a day-to-day event. Just take it slow. Don't have to think of everything like so far out into the future. You just got to take it one step at a time, just baby steps. Sometimes at first for me, it took me 10 years to get sober and clean and learn what active recovery really was. And I was crawling. And now, now I'm able to walk. I have a wonderful partner here, She's not my possession. I don't have to possess her. She actually walks side by side with me in life. But find you a good support group and a good structure, and help other people. Once you begin that journey, immediately don't think that, oh, I got to wait this amount of time in recovery for service work or helping other people. Helping people helps you, so.
What's the first step? What should someone do? We're going to wrap up now, but do they call a friend, call their counselor, or do they look up a program, find a
There's
meeting,
tons.
any of those things?
Yeah, there's tons of resources out there. Absolutely. So you definitely want to reach out to either friends or family, or, maybe my wife could probably help better answer that. She's the pro at this stuff.
So if you are struggling, there are people out there, peer support specialists are willing, they've been where you're at. Never be afraid to reach out for help. And if you are someone who's in recovery, don't be afraid to share your story, because your story has power. That is the one thing that I used to think, is that my voice didn't matter, but my voice, I have learned, is the most powerful thing that I can use. The two things is my voice and my choice. Those are the two things that I learned were the most powerful things that I possess.
I love that.
So
so
that's
much.
just really
And we'll
great.
go ahead and put Meridian's number on the box
Yeah,
as well. That's
we
what
can do
it'll-
that. Yeah, talk to your primary care, call 211, reach out to your local behavioral health center, Google online what's near you.
Mm.
There's lots of different ways. You can reach Meridian at mymeridianhealthcare.org. We're going to wrap up for today. Thank you so much, Harry, Nikki. We thank you. Your time. We so appreciate you sharing your story with us, and we know it's going to help people.
We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Brain Factor. Joy and I are so thrilled to be having these needed conversations. We'd love to hear your feedback on this episode, so if you could drop a comment or leave a review with your thoughts or any requests that you may have, it would be appreciated. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Living a healthier and happier life starts with one step, and we're excited to be on this journey with you. Until next time.